Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're doing a long-term review of the Vivo Barefoot MAGNA FG. So when I first got these shoes, I kind of thought that they were a gimmick because Vivo Barefoot had just started coming out with this like slip-on upper hiking boot shoe kind of thing. And honestly, they just sort of like sat at the front door under my shoe area for a while. I didn't really use them for anything. I didn't know what to use them for. But then one day I was like on a rush to go out the door to go to the grocery store. And I was like, what do I grab? And I just grabbed these because they're slip-on, right? So I just like slipped them straight on. Didn't even have to put the laces, tie the laces. I was just like out the door, onto the trails. And from then on, I realized like the genius of the MAGNA FG because it's like the perfect shoe for just like doing anything except maybe some like really technical backpacking or something where you'd want more security. But anyways, yeah. One of the things I really love about this shoe is just like the toe box. Vivo Barefoot has this like squared off design for a lot of their shoes now. And then they're pretty wide. They're actually wider than most Vivos, and with leather, they give you a little more room as well. So I've never felt like I had not enough room in this boot or shoe. I don't know what to call it. Shoe boot, maybe. But I've stacked up like layer of Injinji merino wool toe socks. And like another layer on top of that, and then like a wool felt insole, and I still had enough room in here. There's a lot of room vertically too, which is something that's made this boot really versatile for me because I can put whatever I want in there and it never feels tight. As for the laces, I've said this in my other MAGNA FG reviews, but I have never touched these. They've held perfectly fine, but honestly, like I just slip in and you get enough security because it is really stretchy. This is a wool blend collar. And it provides a really good lockdown, surprisingly. It's not like a shoe or boot that I'd really use for running, mostly because of the leather. It does have more structure, so I think, it's not quite as bendy as like a lighter texture shoe, like the water-resistant soft ground, that kind of thing, where it's got like a really thin synthetic lining. But yeah, they're really comfortable, and I like the rib design because it creates a little more breathability, plus having the wool. And I've worn these down to 0 degrees and then up to like 80 degrees today. I was working in the van. I was finishing up doing my windows. I used them while I was installing those two windows, and then this window, that window, the ceiling fan up here. Pretty much everything that I've done in the van, I've been using the MAGNA FG. It's kind of like a low-key work boot too. Because like I said, the leather has a little more structure. It's not like stiff feeling like some work boots would be, so if you're in a like extreme work area where there's like 2-inch nails that you're going to step on and stuff like that, it's probably not the best option. But in terms of the sole, it's 5.5 millimeters, so it's like right in the middle of the road of what you would expect for a barefoot shoe. It's got some really excellent flexibility. You can twist it in any direction. And this is the FG1 sole, probably the most versatile sole from Vivo Barefoot in my opinion. They have the FG2 now, which is a little bit better on soft ground if you're doing a mix of both, but definitely for firm ground or pavement or walking in city environments, this is definitely the best. And the lugs are close enough together where you get some protection from like, I've been cutting with the jigsaw, so there's like little shards all over the floor. And this sole does a really good job of protecting against that. I've never had anything come through. I haven't stepped on, like a 2-inch nail going through. I'm sure that would puncture it, but anything else, little metal shards, glass. I've walked on glass with these. It's really great as well. And then in the back, when you're walking around, you're usually on a heel, right? So it's even more dense, which is another reason why these are nice as a hiking boot or a work boot or, pretty much do anything boot. The one thing I don't like about them is the strap here. It's not just the strap, but it's also this wraparound area here. I find it's just a little bit stiff, like when you transition from this, which is really light and flexible, to the area down here, which has a little more structure. You can just kind of feel some pressure on your ankle. It's gotten better as I've used it because, like most leather shoes, the leather gets softer and more flexible the longer you wear it. I haven't had to treat these at all with any kind of leather protector, like lanolin, wax, beeswax, that type of thing, because the water resistance has been really good. Like I can take these out on a muddy day when it's been raining and they're inch deep puddles, and as long as it stays below here, like these boots, shoe boots, are totally fine. If it's like raining, and you get some water splashing up here, the wool is not waterproof and it is going to come through there, but mostly for casual walks, casual hikes, pretty much anything you're going to be doing. Like, it's really not going to go much deeper than this. And in terms of the temperature range, like, it was 80 degrees in the van today, and my feet were doing pretty well. You know, they're getting a little bit steamy, but the ribbed wool design here lets a lot more air and moisture come out of the boot than you would have with like a full leather option. Vivo Barefoot also has the MAGNA FG leather, which is basically the same thing, but it has more of a sheen to it, so I think the waterproofing is probably even higher. And just in terms of durability, like, even though it's a glued sole, it hasn't had any separation anywhere despite heavy daily use, so I'm really pleased with them. But even though I've only had the MAGNA FG for a year, these are the Primus Trek. This is my original pair of barefoot hiking shoes. Has a glued sole as well, very similar type of shoe, and you can see also that there's really no separation anywhere, so I've been impressed by Vivo Barefoot's durability. If you want a vegan option, this is the Zero Denver, and it has a canvas upper. You can treat this to get the water resistance up. It's not quite as high as the MAGNA FG, but it does have a pretty wide toe box because it's a little bit more tapered than Vivo Barefoot, but it's got a pretty good amount of room in there. I use these a lot as well because they're light but tough. There's a lot of flex here, so I would say these feel more comfortable than the MAGNA FGs just because there's no structure at all, you know, but like I said, you sacrifice water resistance. And in terms of the sole, it's around 6.5 millimeters, so it's a little bit thicker than the MAGNA FG, but very similar amount of flexibility. It's got a split tread here, so it has some really good flex vertically, and then the lugs are kind of like Vivo Barefoot's lugs. They're fairly close together, so it's a good boot for firm ground, but then there's some more reinforcement on the back as well, and because they've got this kind of chevron shape, it can do pretty well on wet ground too. And they also make the MAGNA FG leather, which is basically the same thing, just with a leather upper. These have a little bit more water resistance, but still not as much as the MAGNA FG. This is one where when you get it, I would probably treat it with a wax right away, because when I took them out, it did shed some wet grass, but it got damp, you know, after about half an hour of walking, so yeah. But it has a little more structure, so the leather version feels more like the MAGNA FG than the original Denver. Then you've got the Saltage Fintero. I love this boot because it has a really classic vibe to it. This is the tobacco color, and it looks worn in as soon as you get it, which is cool. It's got some minimal toe protection up there in the front, so it protects you from stubbing your toe without kind of starting to feel clunky in the front of the shoe or limiting. There's still a lot of good flex. It feels very soft and flexible overall. And then on the inside of the boot, it's got a waterproof lining, so this one's really useful in spring, just kind of like the MAGNA FG is. But it does get a little bit hotter because it's waterproof. It doesn't have as much ventilation as the MAGNA FG, although I do like that it has this super long tongue, you can see, so it's not quite gusseted, but it does provide you a lot of protection. And I can take this out when it's pouring or when it's really nasty and slushy in winter, and it works really well. Got some reinforcement on the back there. And then the sole is actually 3.5 millimeters thick, so it's very thin, has some good flexibility to it. It felt a little stiff when I first got it, so if you get these boots and they feel too stiff to you, I would just give them a chance, work them in for a few weeks, because it does get better. And then in terms of the sole, it's got a really interesting cross-hatch design, and it works well on firm ground. You can hear it's got some really nice toughness to it, but it's pretty grippy for a 3.5 millimeter sole. It can definitely handle some gravel and mud if it's not too steep, but overall a good boot for really wet conditions when it's cold. And then finally we've got the Freet Muddy. This is a absolute tank of a boot. This is a good one to wear if you're going on some really extreme backpacking or, you know, super rocky, gnarly conditions. It's got a slanted back, which I like. It adds a little bit of mobility, and it has the thickest leather out of the ones we've looked at. Wide toe box, squared off, kind of like Vivo Barefoot, which I like, and it's fully waterproof. Like I said, this thing is a tank. It's got some really nice grommets and then quick release laces at the top, so it's not a slip-in boot, but you can get it on and off pretty fast, just leaving these and then just whipping off the top too. And then the slanted back helps get in and out pretty fast too. It's got the smallest pull tab I've ever seen. It's not very useful, but I don't really find it necessary. In terms of the sole, it has some decent flexibility vertically, but then horizontally, you know, it definitely takes more pressure to get the boot to flex. I think this is a boot that will work in over time, but yeah, we'll see in a long-term review. And then in terms of the lugs, these are just monster lugs. They're very wide. They have a lot of surface area for dealing with, like I said, super rocky terrain, mountainous terrain, and nothing is getting through these. So these would be something you could actually use in kind of like a construction scene where you really needed some beefy protection. But like I said, it does sacrifice some of the flexibility. And then also the same thing in the back as the other ones, where it gets a little bit more dense, more protection in your heel for when you're going down hills. And there is still enough room in here to work for mud too. But yeah, that's my long-term review of the Vivo Barefoot Magna FG and friends. But if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below. Browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Vivo Barefoot Magna FG or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.